kids, today we are going to talk about how to begin your sewing project. Your class either voted for sewing a donut or a pizza. Either way, we're going to start the same method. First, you are going to have your cut shape of tan crust or dough fabric, pretend dough of course. When you get it, it's going to either look like this, unfolded, or if you fold it on the connection point on the fold, you will see the circular shape that represents your donut or the triangular shape that represents your pizza. This is ultimately the shape that we're going to be working with. Today I'm going to start with the donut. Here we go. Boys and girls, when I teach my kids to tie a knot at the end of a string or at the end of two strings connected, I think about the letter U. Now, I can cross that over and turn it into a letter O. This O is a loop. So I can pick up this loop of string like this, and these tails are going to come behind. When I push them behind, I poke them through the hole that was just created. Now they're poking out. If I pull those strings through the hole starts to get smaller and create the knot. I'll show you that again. Make a letter U, cross it over. Those ends are on top of that string. This has created a loop. I pinch it in my fingers, and I can press that loop through. Excuse me, not the loop, the ends through the loop. Do you see how they've just come through from the back to the front? As I pull, if I need to scoop my knot down, I can slide my knot like a fireman's pole, and I slide down. Did you know that you can actually do this on your finger as well? You take your finger, wrap it around your string around to make a letter U. Do you see the U at the end of my finger? I do. Then cross it over and use your finger to tuck it through. I have found both strategies are helpful. It's really just going to be what you like to do with tying knots on the end of strings. I'm going to show you the finger again. I'm going to make a letter U, take the ends, and twist them through the loop that I've made. I slide my finger off so then I can take my fingers and pull. All right, now we're ready to attach some toppings. All right, so the first thing we do with our donut is we're gonna write our name on the back. So I've got permanent marker. One side is going to have our name and our class code. Let's say that our class code is 5LB. Whatever your class code is, I want you to add that and then turn it over. If you still have a sticker on it from the shop, peel it off. And I want you to pick your frosting. You can see here I had pink felt fabric for my frosting. I have a whole selection of colors. I chose this one. I've cut these to size for the size of your donut. It's not that much larger. I sized it this way so that all you had to do to make your frosting is either cut around your corners to make it round. When I say cut around your corners, I literally mean just cut your corners off. That way you still have the most amount of frosting that you might want. You can always cut more off, it's just more challenging to add it back in. Might even save those for something. All right, I see that my frosting is still a little too wide. I can see it coming off the side over here, so I'm going to trim it. That's all right. Oh, I like that. Okay, now I can make a choice. I can choose if I want my frosting to be flat and straight or if I want it to be curvy. I'm going to choose to have mine curvy. To do this, I'm going to fold it like a taco. And actually, let me start this way by saying I was going to fold it like a taco, but I want you to know what's going on in my brain. You can get a permanent marker and draw a letter U. Letter U, curvy, curvy, curvy. They're not really big. You could go all the way around, or you could choose to fold this in half. By folding it in half and then choosing to cut, we're actually doing less work, getting more results. So holding it in one hand and cutting it with the other. Okay. And if you don't want to see your markers marked, you just turn it upside down. If you don't want it so pointy, you could go back, curve those edges. Always your choice. I like that one. But some donuts have holes in it, some donuts don't. This one I kept flat for this donut to have lime frosting. And there's a hole in the middle. In order to do that, we're also going to fold it in half. You can choose to draw a line with a permanent marker. Again, make it on the same side that you used your marker before. Doesn't need to be big. I drew just a arch or a frowny face. It's no bigger really than my thumb. I'm going to pinch where I'm cutting and chop my scissors down. And now I have a hole. If yours doesn't come out perfect, it's completely okay. So now that you have your frosting, or you have your pizza sauce that you've cut down, it's time to start sewing. I'm going to cut this down because it's a little too tall. We're going to be sewing on these felt fabric pieces. And to do that, we're going to open up our fabric and we're going to be sewing what's called an applique sewing style. We're going to be applying this fabric to this brown fabric. You see I've got my thread here and I've got some colors here. Normally I would choose blue to match. I've got yellow, I've got red. So today I'm going to go with my blue. Here's my sewing needle. I'm not ready for that yet, so I'm going to place it into my fabric to keep it safe. I'm going to pull my string. I don't even have to take it off my spool. And I get the amount that goes from my hand all the way to my heart. And clip. Now I have two ends of my string. One of these ends I'm going to put through the eye of my needle. The eye of your needle is the hole. Let's see if we can focus on that. So here's the eye of my needle, and we're going to thread this needle with, let's see, there we go. And we're going to place our string through it. Now, I got mine on the first try by placing it through. If you don't get yours on the first try, please do not lick the string, only because we share these needles with other students, and I would hate for you to put your germs on another needle that someone else's germs is already on. Instead, fold your string and you can poke it through, bring the fuzz through, or use one of our paper needle threaders. I'm looking at the size of my needle hole. It looks like my people needle threader was too tall, so we'll use my fourth method. Wrap your string around. And pinch it off and slide it through. There we go. Once you've threaded your needle, you're going to take both ends, not just one, but both ends of that string, and connect them. Make a U, cross it over, loop through, and tie a knot. That knot is what connects your string. You can even do it a second time to make a larger knot, your choice. But now my needle is threaded. To start sewing, I'm going to start from the bottom side. I'm going to check to make sure that my needle is starting on the inner edge. I'm thinking I'm going to draw some dots to show you what I'm visualizing. This is not something that you need to do. I just want to show you. I'm not going to be sewing right on the edge of the frosting, but I'm also not going to be sewing in the middle. This is a pathway that I would be following. I'm starting from the back and coming to the front, making sure that my thread is coming through the back all the way to the front. Once I come up, we're going to do a running stitch. I'm going to go down. From the top, you go down to the bottom, and then I'm going to pull. I want to close this loop so that my stitch is snug, but not so tight that it's tearing my fabric. I look back, and I can see where my needle's coming up. I pull into where the stitch is nice and snug, and then pull again. If you're on the top, you need to go down. If you're on the bottom, you need to go up. Some of you can make a prediction that in order to keep going, I am going to repeat this step all the way around my frosting. If you would like, you can use one of these permanent markers to create your stitches or marks as a pathway, especially for new individuals in sewing. That could be a helpful tip. All right, hello my amazing artist. I have just about finished stitching all the way around my frosting, and number one, I realized that I stitched it with my Sharpie marker side up. You know what? It's okay. Even if you don't mean to or you have an accent like that, it's still going to work out. So you can see on my back that my stitches go all the way through, up and down, and around the shape of my frosting. I'm just about done, and I'm going to show you how I'm going to stop this string. Whether you run out of string and are not done with frosting, or you're done with your frosting and are ready to stop, your very last stitch, you're going to bring your needle to the back. Then you are going to, remember how your needle's tied on, you're going to cut these strings long enough to where it's about length of your hand, if you have that much left. If you have less than that, do your best to stop with pieces long enough that you can tie it like you would tie shoes. You would cross your strings in an X, bring your thread over, and tie. That's one. Do it a second time. We're tying a knot with 2 strings. Trim it, and now your frosting's attached. All right, so I have finished sewing on my frosting. I did my edging around, and then also decided that I was going to do stitching on the inner side. It's not a have to, but it is something that secures the middle. You can see my stitches on the back side. Now it's time to decorate. You may choose to leave your donut like this, or you may choose to think about adding some beads or some additional fabric strips. I'm thinking about having maybe a lemon drizzle on, maybe it's I could pretend that this is a blueberry sweet glaze frosting and have some drizzles going back and forth. I would stitch those on. Or maybe I want to have small yellow beads to be sprinkles. I'll talk about now how to add either of those on. Okay, so I have my needle coming up from the back. It's threaded and with both ends tied. And I have gone up from the bottom towards the top, and I have my strip of fabric through the needle as well. It's not glued or anything. I'm going to hold it with one hand, pull my needle up until my knot gently stops. It is a small knot, so if I pull hard enough, it will come through. So I'll just be gentle. And then I'm going to repeat my process of adding stitches, just like I did for my frosting. I had blue thread on my needle already, so I can choose to keep that blue thread. Some of you may want to choose to have thread that's different than your fabric colors. Some may want to match. It's entirely up to you. I'm going up and down, and I think about how my stitches are like the lines on a road, the dashed lines. They're about the same size, and they're about the same distance apart. I don't have some that are really big and some that are really small. I try to keep it consistent. Ooh, just poked myself. That's gonna happen. Just be aware of where your needle is. All right, so this one's just about sewed on. Keeping your finger on top of the fabric helps it to lay flat and stay in the spot that you want while you're working to sew it on. Again, this is a type of applique where we are applying our fabric through the method of sewing. I'm coming to the back side. I'll come out the back, trim these to where they're long enough for me to tie a knot and then be done, or because I know I'm going to put on some more, I can keep going. I think I want to put the next one, maybe I'll put the next one here. Bring my needle still on the back side, bring it up through that yellow. If it wiggles a little bit, that's all right. Place it where you want it. If I pull really tight, my string gap is going to pull tight, but I'm going to keep it a little loose. That way my fabric isn't bending. All right, so I'll keep going. But what if I want to add a string, or excuse me, not a string, a bead? Maybe beads could represent sprinkles. Maybe they just add a little sparkle and fun. I'm going to be using a similar stitch pattern to get my beads on. Let's see what we can do. I've still got string. I can still sew. I'm at the back side. I'm going to choose, I think I'm going to choose some, let's see, dark blue beads. Light blue. I'm going to do the light blue. So wherever my needle is at, or where I want my bead, I'm going to poke my needle from the back, thread my bead on. I like to use my finger to hold my bead in place, just like my fabric. This is a two-handed art form. My bead is on, and now I'm going to poke my needle almost exactly where the string came out before, pushing to the back, and this will secure my bead. If I really wanted it not to wiggle, I could do that process again. Come up through the middle, come down by the side. As long as you have string, you can keep going. You might add another one again. Bring your needle up, get my beads, put your bead on, hold that bead in place with your finger. Here we go. And it's okay to slide that bead down while you're waiting, while you're trying to get back where almost right beside your string was. All right, I'm going to keep working on this. I can't wait to see what you come up with. I got twisted just a little bit. There we go. All right, happy making. Good morning, artist, or good afternoon, wherever it is where you are. I have completed my applique sewing with my beads, frosting, even drizzles that I wanted to add. It's okay if the back of yours looks a little spider webby. The front is what we're going to be focusing on. And now it's time for one of my favorite parts. We're going to be folding our donut fabric together on the fold where at the connection point and start stitching this together. As we sew, we're going to start at one point where it's folded, work our way around, but we're going to stop to leave one end of this donut open. The reason we're going to do that is to add our fluff. As we start, something to keep an eye out for is if your fabric edges are matching. I have a few moments over here where maybe it's mismatched. That could be that Mrs. Jerk's scissors were crooked. That could be that my fabric was off. Things to look for would be like this. These are really mismatched and would prove challenging to connect stitches. So as you're sewing, be aware if your fabric shifts, just shift it back before you continue stitching so that you can have matched edges so your stitches can have spaces to go both the front and the back to connect those fabrics, because we are still doing our stitches that are going to connect two pieces of fabric together, and these stitches are going to seal up or to close our donut shape to make it into a pillow. I am sewing around the outer edge. I'm not so close. Ooh, I got a string caught on my bead. If that happens, just take a minute so you can get it untangled. That's going to happen to you too. It's all right. And if it gets super duper twisted, you can't seem to get it going. Let's see. Oh, it came off. All right. Back to regular programming. Notice that my stitches are not touching the edge, but they're also not all the way here towards the frosting. It's kind of in between those two areas. And just adjusted my fabric. It will like to shift as we're going around. So that's why we train our eyes, our sewing eyes. Ooh, there's those sprinkles again. Adjust it a little bit each time. Front to back, back to front. Our stitches are pulled flat, not so tight that we tear our fabric, but just pulled flat. Remember, when you're sewing, especially when you're going from the back to the front, pull your back stitches flat as well. Gently pull them flat so that you have all your sewing thread available to you. And clearly, watch out for your sprinkle beads. I can see a shift already happening here. I'm going to move my fabric again, realign it, and keep sewing. I'll speed this up, and I'll meet you when we get to a stopping point to have an opening. I'm going to be stopping probably right about here. I've started from this fold. I'm going to go all the way around and stop right here. All right, I have completed sewing all the way 3/4 of the way, around. I started at one end where my fold is, come around, and stopped about 3/4 of the way. When I stopped, I went ahead and finished off my string. I've tied a knot with these two ends, and then I can trim them, just so they're not hanging out. What's left is an opening, not too big, not too small. If I pull really hard, I would be able to rip these stitches. Don't be afraid to handle your work, and if stitches come loose, like mine just did, then we know how to sew it back. It's okay. But now for my favorite part. You're going to go up to my stuffing material box, and you're going to get a handful like a snowball. Bring it back to your table, and I want you to pinch off a cotton ball at a time. It's tempting to put this whole thing in this donut at one time, but by doing a cotton ball at a time and getting a pencil, you can gently press these little pieces down into the shape of your donut. Often if we do just one big wad of cotton, it will actually feel like that inside the pillow. It won't be filling up your shape, but instead just be one lumpy bumpy cotton ball inside your fabric, which we don't want that. So I'm using my pencil to gently press it into the places of the donut. I can feel it right here filling up nice and round. I'm going to continue one little cotton ball at a time. I don't have to press it with my pencil so much as it fills, but I use that to get to the spaces and places that are challenging with my hands. Cotton ball at a time. All right. I'm going to stop right here because I can see that my cotton's almost to the top, but I still have some spaces. I want to have enough space that I can still close my donut. I can feel it. It feels really nice and fluffy like a pillow, and I'm going to close this up. All right, we're going to start stitching, and we're going to bring it around, and we'll be all done. Happy making, artists. All right, artist, I have completed sewing all the way around my donut. It is stuffed, really squishy. Something I chose to do at the very end, totally optional, is where I have the fold of our donut, I chose to continue stitching. I know I didn't need my stitch to close it, but I decided that I wanted my stitches to kind of match to make it look the same all the way around. That was a choice that I enjoyed making. It's up to you, but I'm all done with our donut. I can't wait to see yours and what you come up with. Remember, if your donut along the way looks different than mine or different from your neighbors, it's okay because we are all different artists. So our artwork is going to have to look different from each other. I can't wait to see what you make. Have fun, do your best, and happy making.